So in this video, we're going to go through the MailChimp integration. And what I'll do to begin with is just go through the settings which enable this functionality to be in place. And then we'll go through the settings that you can utilize once the integration is in place to make the most use of it. But if we start within the admin area and we go to user group permissions, what you'll find under the designated user group permission that you wish to use is an option here for add to MailChimp audience, and that needs to be set to full access. So this will dictate whether or not you have the option from a search result to be able to add either a group of candidates or contacts to a MailChimp audience. So that needs to be set to full access there. The other component that needs to be worked on or delivered on is either from a global setting standpoint or from a user setting standpoint. You need to enter in MailChimp, a MailChimp API base URL and a MailChimp API key. Now, if you do it on a global level, then obviously it's going to be available for all users if you're using a company-based MailChimp account. But we've done it in a manner so that you can also do it against your user as well. And then you'll have both the options of the audiences from the MailChimp global account and also that your own user account available within that drop-down list. We've done it that way because we understand that users will have MailChimp accounts on an individual basis in some organizations, and others there may be a global account. So in order to get your MailChimp API base URL and your MailChimp API key, what we'll now do is go through onto our MailChimp account here, and we'll go to the API keys page. So that's available in your MailChimp account under your profile section. Under the extras option, you've got API keys as a section here. So within API keys, what you have is an option here to create a key. You can label that key as you see fit, but the key thing obviously that you need is the API key itself. And what you need to do is obviously copy that API key out of this area and take it locally so that you can then use that moving forwards. But the key component of the API key in relation to the base URL is the last 4 characters at the end here. And they specify the MailChimp server that your account with MailChimp is hosted on. MailChimp have obviously numerous hosting accounts in relation, or hosting servers in relation to their accounts. In this instance, for this account, we're on US 19, but you may be on any number of server names or server numbers in relation to their setup. So you have to update your API key accordingly, or take your API base URL accordingly on the basis of the server name that you're allocated to. So I've copied out this API key here, and I've copied in what is the base format for the API URL. And what I'm showing you here is that obviously this is our key, but the last 4 characters of the key need to be copied into this section of the base URL. So it's probably better to pause the video at this point, but yeah, essentially your base URL needs to be in this format with the API key last 4 characters being entered within this area here. And then from there, once you have your API key and your API base URL, you can obviously then copy those into these setting fields, and then you essentially have the connection strings in place to be able to link the 2 entities together moving forwards. So that's the setting up of the MailChimp initial connection between Colleague 7 and your MailChimp account. So the next point we'll go through is the actual process of uploading a candidate record to a MailChimp audience from a search result. What I wanted to do to begin with is just go within a candidate record just to highlight a couple of points. One is that the MailShot status will be checked as part of this process, similar to when sending out an email from a search result. So it will need to ensure that whether set at allow all or the email only is set, but it will look to see that you've got essentially a MailShot status authority to allow for the record to be uploaded. It will also be looking for GDPR consent as well. So providing that the record has got GDPR consent and your MailShot status type has been set as well, this record will be fine to be uploaded to MailChimp, and as part of the upload process, it's going to use the primary email address that is associated with the record. So if we go over to a candidate search, and if I do a search for and we'll use the status of new, we'll just bring back some records here. One of those records is the record that we were just on there. So what we have as an available option now off selected records is an option here for add to MailChimp audience. And this was obviously on the basis of that user group permission being set to allow access. If you didn't have access to see it, it wouldn't be accessible here, but providing that you do, you can see it here and you can select obviously the candidates that you want to upload to MailChimp, and we'll just select this one in this instance, and we'll say add to MailChimp audience. So what it will then do is it will launch this alert view, and what you'll have is a list from the drop-down menu. You'll have a list of all of the available MailChimp audiences that you can access from your user group. So because we obviously set up against our user, we're going to have MailChimp audiences that are set against our user. We might also have MailChimp audiences that are set up against the global MailChimp account if that's been set as well. And also it is possible to share your own personal MailChimp audience with other users, provided you have in brackets shared written as the MailChimp, as the title of the MailChimp audience. So what we'll do is we'll select the MailChimp audience that we want to upload this candidate to. What we also have is the option to be able to assign tags against a MailChimp, against this this contact that we're going to be uploading to MailChimp. So within MailChimp, you have obviously tags available to you, and based on those tags, you can then run campaigns against specific tags, or even though you only have one MailChimp audience as a group. So it's just a way of organizing the audiences that you have in your MailChimp account. So if we use the MailChimp tag of DP demo as our example tag, and then we say OK there, what we'll see is that it just advised that we're uploading the MailChimp, uploading the candidate to the MailChimp account. You'll get a confirmation alert there that advises 1 record added, 0 already on the list, because it will check to see whether or not you've already uploaded this candidate previously. Also, it will advise whether or not any have been removed on the basis of the Mailshot status or the GDPR status. If there is a failure in the upload process, a history will be logged against that candidate record to advise that it failed to upload to the MailChimp audience. But you also get a confirmation history created against the candidate advising when a candidate has been successfully added to a MailChimp audience. But as a point of note, there is a background service which is running against the system, which runs every 5 to 10 minutes. And it's that background service that will process your request to upload this candidate to this audience. And it's that background service that will actually process that with MailChimp. So there is a delay of around 5 to 10 minutes following running this workflow before you're going to see your actual candidate record or contacts appear actually against your audience within the MailChimp account. That's just as part of the background service process that we're running with this functionality. Once the background service has run through and the record has been successfully updated, you're going to get a confirmation notification come through. So we'll wait for that notification to come through and then we'll proceed from there. Okay, so what we can see now is that a MailChimp notification has come back, or a notification has been received. It's a MailChimp notification, and it confirms that a subscription has taken place against the specified audience here, being mailing list. So we've got 1 subscribed there. If there was any failures, you would be notified again through the same process, only advised of a failure in this notification window, and there would be failed history codes logged against the records that failed to upload to the MailChimp account. So within the candidate record that we uploaded to the MailChimp audience, if I go to history, what you can see is you have an added to queue for MailChimp audience history code. So that's you actually running the workflow from the search, so requesting for the candidate to be uploaded to the MailChimp audience. And you can see there that the tag is also recorded against that history. And then what you have here is a history code that's been logged, which is actually the response back from MailChimp confirming the subscription. So you have a secondary type here that's basically just confirming the subscription of the candidate to that audience. If we go over to our MailChimp account, you can see now that there's an extra tag for DP demo, which was that record being uploaded to the audience. And if we go to the actual members itself, the actual candidate that we uploaded, you can see there that it's now within the account. The obviously tag of DP demos is obviously logged there. And the key thing to note here is the activity feed that is against the account. So the activity feed is what we're going to be using and what we're going to be tracking against this record. So in this instance, at the moment, the activity feed is purely just confirmation that it was added via the API, and that's the history code that we obviously logged as the subscription. But as you go about sending campaigns to this candidate, it's obviously going to grow an activity feed based on the sending of those campaigns, and that activity feed is then going to be recorded within Colleague. So going back to Colleague, what I'll do now is I'll go through the history codes which track the different MailChimp activities, and then we'll go through an actual campaign send and we'll see those activities coming back. So within the admin area, under lookups and under the section of history codes, what you're going to see now is that there is a section of MailChimp based history codes that have been put in place, and these each represent the different types of activity which can be tracked from MailChimp as part of obviously the API integration that we have with them. So there's also this MailChimp based history code, but that's the internal request from running that workflow to actually upload the candidate or contact to the MailChimp audience. It's these items here that are actually the activity feed coming back from MailChimp being recorded against the record. So what is recommended is that you set the allow selection to be yes against each of these different MailChimp type history codes. The reason why you would do that is so that you allow for the MailChimp history code to be searchable. And then what you can then do is essentially further on in this video, we'll be able to see that you can run searches against the different MailChimp history types, and that allows you to essentially see within a date range different records that have been essentially tracked and logging these different history types that we're seeing here. So what we'll do now, what I'll do now is I'll send a MailChimp campaign to the uploaded candidates, and then we'll see that activity feed coming through. Okay, so I've just sent a MailChimp campaign, and it was just to that one candidate that we uploaded. But you can see here that as part of the activity tracking from the reporting, we've got one open, one clicked. And essentially, if we go to the candidate record again within the MailChimp account, you can see the activity feed tracking the opens and clicks and the sends. I essentially sent this very basic email through to my account. What we do see is we do see a bit of repetition within the activity feed on MailChimp. That's obviously on MailChimp's side, but we try and consolidate that just for the purposes of obviously giving accurate and best data for you to work with within the Colleague system. So if we go back onto the candidate record, obviously the background service has been running through, and within the history logs, you can see here that we've got a MailChimp campaign open, which is obviously me opening the email that I've received. Campaign clicked is me clicking on the link that's within the email, which was a link just to the Colleague software website. And campaign sent is obviously a track that a campaign was actually sent to the record. So what you have there is just a selection of some of the campaign hits that obviously come back. If there was a bounce, so if the email address is invalid, it would have been bounced, then you would have got campaign bounce here. If there was an unsubscribe, the unsubscribe would have also come through as well. Yeah, essentially that's the nature of the activity feed tracking the different data that's going to be coming back from the MailChimp account as you're sending out campaigns. As a final point, what I'll do is I'll go over to searching just to demonstrate how you go about searching based on different campaign types, just to finish up there. So the final point to cover is the history searching elements that comes with this. If you want to search through and track based on the activity logging that you've had back in from MailChimp, track to see which records are doing what with regards to MailChimp campaigns. So this goes back to the point that was made earlier in the video in relation within admin under lookups and history codes to set the specific MailChimp history codes to allow selection of yes, so that they are searchable. So what you can do within a candidate search and also a contact search is you can tick history, and this will give you a list of all of the history types that are searchable or that have been set to be searchable. And if you set those MailChimp history codes to be searchable, they're going to appear within this list here. And what that allows you to do is then select a specific MailChimp history code. So for example, we'll say campaign open, which is the scenario of the candidate record being sent a campaign and they've opened the email. And then you can enter in a date range as part of your check against to see whether or not there's been any instances against your candidate records. Obviously, this is a demo system, so the numbers are light, but the principle is the same. You would enter in your date range, you'd specify your specific MailChimp activity type, and essentially you'll get your records back in terms of who has done what within that date range. If you're looking at for records perhaps that have clicked on a MailChimp link that has been within a MailChimp campaign, as opposed to just open the email, then it's another type of engagement, and it's you can obviously track it on the basis of that. Likewise, if there's any failures that have occurred, so if you've attempted to upload a candidate or contact record to a MailChimp audience and they've failed to do so, this would be the way in which you would track those records that have failed to update and obviously correct them if for whatever reason they've obviously failed to do so. So this is, and obviously unsubscriptions is another key one as well in terms of tracking the unsubscriptions that have come back from MailChimp. So this covers the history element with regards to the MailChimp activity tracking within Colleague 7, and ultimately covers all of the MailChimp integration components with regards to Colleague 7's integration with MailChimp.